Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the William Bonney Weekly Podcast, the episode that comes out each and every week without fail. We talk about things that are going on in the news, things that are going on in my life, and basically bits and pieces that I've just want to talk about, really. Today, we're going to have a look at the Casey report that's come out about the Met Police, a damning report saying that the Met Police is racist, homophobic, misogynist, on an institutional level. So we're going to have a look and read through some of her report, which is very, very interesting. We were going to have a look at 24 hours in police custody. I watched a couple of episodes yesterday and today, and it was about a robbery gone wrong, a honey trap robbery that had gone completely wrong, and the victim lost his life in the end. So I thought I'd have a quick look at that for you as well and just sort of give my thoughts on that for you. So thank you very much for listening again, and let's get into it. So we'll start off with the Met Police report. Okay, it starts off, basically the Met Police came under scrutiny after the Sarah Everard murder. In March 2021, she was abducted, raped and murdered by a serving police officer. He used his credentials as a police officer to handcuff her and put her in the back of the car, and then took her off to a site where he committed his heinous crimes. A complete absolute breach of trust. It was horrendous to think that that sort of thing goes on and that kind of person is allowed to be a policeman. It kind of makes you think, was he the type of person that leaned that way? I mean, I know he's been done for flashing and things since. He's got a whole life sentence at the moment. Wayne Couzens has, had a history of sexual deviant behaviour. And now he's serving a whole life sentence, and I think they put another 15 months on top for him flashing, which I thought was fairly pointless, really. You're going to be in prison for the rest of your life, and then once you die, you've got to start 15 months extra for flashing. Seems a bit daft, waste of resources, but hey, justice is justice. And even the policing, the way they policed there was, a candlelit vigil in the park where she died, where she was abducted from. And the police cracked down on it. I don't know if you remember seeing it. It was just a bunch of women. There was probably about 100 or so women there, all with candles and, singing songs and just being peaceful and stuff. And the Met Police thought it was just, because it was in lockdown period, they thought it was right that they should crack down on this. And there was scenes, obviously, of those women being dragged off into police vans. It was just ridiculous. Like, it was complete misstep by the Met Police, and they got it completely wrong. There's been a report done by Baroness Casey, and she's been quite scathing about the Met Police. Like I say in the beginning, she believes that the Met Police is institutionally racist, misogynistic, and homophobic, which are obviously not standards that any police force would try and hold themselves up to, let alone possibly one of the biggest area police forces in the country. I encourage you to, if you Google the Casey report, you can actually download it and have a read through yourself. It's 300 odd pages, but it's really, really interesting. I'm just going to pick out bits and pieces of it. I'm going to read a section of the foreword to you now. So here we go. Only 2 years ago, in March 2021, Sarah Everard was abducted, raped and murdered by a serving Metropolitan Police officer. With greater courage than I can ever imagine, Sarah's mother, Susan Everard, told the court in her victim impact statement that there is no comfort to be had. There is no consoling thought in the way that Sarah died. In her last hours, she faced brutality and terror alone with someone intent on doing her harm. The thought of it is unbearable. I am haunted by the horror of it. I am repulsed by the thought of what he did to Sarah. I am outraged that he masqueraded as a policeman in order to get what he wanted. It's awful, isn't it? I mean, just the thought, she was walking across a park on her own after being with a friend, and she was just abducted in this way. Going back to the report again, the lifespan of this review has been bookended by that tragedy and another avoidable and abhorrent case only 2 months ago, another serving Met police officer who exploited his position was also convicted of one of the country's most prolific sexual offenders. They are connected in another way too. What Miss Everard could not have known is, as she made her statement, was that another woman heard those words and was so struck by them that she was moved to call 101 and report what the other Met officer has done, having tortured and raped her and left her for dead. It was only as a result of her call that another woman came forward, and that same officer was eventually prosecuted. None of this should have happened. Enough was known about both men to have stopped them much earlier, and there is no comfort I can offer Sarah's family and the victims of that rapist in my words. Nothing I can say can match the daily agony and pain that these crimes continue to cause to those affected. But I do want to begin this report by remembering Sarah, thinking of all those who have suffered as a result of the Met officers' crimes, and paying tribute to those who have fought for justice on their behalves. Those crimes and those betrayals of trust led to my appointment to review the standards and culture in the Met. The previous commissioner was right to establish this review, and with the Mayor's support, I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to lead this work, and I'm grateful to the new commissioner for his continued support. I am also deeply grateful to all of those who have given us their time and told us their stories, often recounting traumatic and painful experiences. So it then goes on in great detail to talk about, obviously, the way that not all police officers are bad. They are daily putting themselves at risk. But with every organisation, especially one as big as the police service, you're going to get some bad eggs. Going back to it again here, it says, I am unconvinced that police forces are fully alive to the risk, nor that the Met fully understands the gravity of this situation as a whole. If a plane fell out of the sky tomorrow, a whole industry would stop and ask itself why. It would be a catalyst for self-examination and then root and branch reform. Instead, the Met preferred to pretend that their own perpetrators of such heinous crimes were just bad apples, or not police officers at all. So throughout this review, I have asked myself time and time again, if these crimes cannot prompt that self-reflection and reform, then what will it take? She then goes on to mention the Stephen Lawrence case as well in 1999. Many people have been raising grave concerns about the Met for much longer than that. Now, I've got my own opinion with the Stephen Lawrence murders. I bumped into his cousin when I was in prison, and I won't go into it all, but because I don't know if it's 100% true. But the cousin of Stephen Lawrence was saying that Stephen Lawrence wasn't this angel. He was a bit of a criminal in the area as well, and some would say that the people who came and stabbed him were doing a revenge attack for something that Stephen Lawrence had done. But again, this is hearsay. I don't know if it's 100% true, but obviously the police didn't come out in any good way at all. So I would encourage you to have a look through that. Like I say, it's 300 pages long. I just wanted to read a small part of it to kind of highlight what Baroness Casey thought of the Met Police and what her findings were. It goes on for hundreds of pages talking about how the police has faced significant challenges over the last 10 years. Crime is changing. Traditional volume of crime such as burglary and theft has declined, while low volume but more serious offences such as crime against a person and sexual offences have significantly increased from 17% of all crimes in 2012 to 2013 to 31% of crimes in 2022 and 2023. So crime is changing, the face of crime is changing sort of in London, and obviously the way that it's being policed is changing. And it says here that historic confidence in the police is down to 5 to 10% now. So it's a bad time for the Met, and obviously a bad report. It's not looking good for them. I saw Sadiq Khan getting grilled on telly earlier, and he wasn't looking comfortable at all. Now, I know that obviously there's people listening from all over the country. I didn't commit much crime in London. Do you know, as a white criminal, I always used to sort of hang around in hoodies. I always, it wasn't like I stood out as not looking like a crook. I always used to dress like a crook. I was always wearing hoodies with my hood up and looking mean and wearing trainers. And do you know what I mean? It wasn't as if I didn't dress like everybody else who committed crime. But do you know how many times I've been stopped and searched in London? Absolutely zero. And quite often, when I was in London, I was carrying large amounts of drugs on me. Never really weapons and things. But as a white 20-year-old man walking around the streets of London with my hood up, never once got stopped, never once got searched. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people who, from my age group, but just from a different ethnic background, I probably got stopped and searched loads more. So yeah, in the comments, I'd like you to obviously, if you have got any experience of that or any stories you'd like to share of the Met Police, then by all means, let's have a discussion and share your thoughts. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk to you guys about today was a episode of 24 Hours in Police Custody that I watched last night. And it was a fantastic episode from the sense of this was exactly how not to commit a crime. When I used to do similar things, it was a honey trap episode. So two girls basically saw that a drug dealer in Luton was sharing the fact on Instagram that he had these two nice Rolexes. They turned out to be fake. He was sharing the pictures of himself on Instagram, sort of showing off. And these two girls picked him out as a victim and decided to rob him, which is so common. People were using Instagram to go and rob people again and again. So it's it's a way of sort of showing off and getting likes, but it's also a way of attracting the wrong kind of attention. And these two girls, or at least one of the girls, decided to rob him, and they used the kind of honey trap method, as in they offered him obviously sex to distract him, while two other fellas came in and robbed him. The robbery went wrong. The victim ended up getting stabbed and died as a consequence. Now, the way I used to commit my robberies in the past, I robbed numerous drug dealers, sometimes on my own, sometimes with a friend or two. And the way we would do it is we would a lot of times people offered me a victim. So I would be at a party or something. I would sort of be telling people what I did for a living, and they would say, "Oh, there's a guy on my street who sells, pills or drugs or coke or something like that." Or when we were partying in Newquay, sometimes people would tell us that there was maybe a gang of Scousers have come down, or people from out of county coming down, and they're on the estate, and can we do something about them? So we would case the place. We would find out what house they were selling drugs out of. We would sit outside and watch them, see who came and went, see how many of them were there, how big they were, did they look dangerous, were they carrying weapons, that sort of thing. And the reason we picked out-of-towners and people from upcountry who were coming down here to sell drugs is because generally the community isn't going to help you. As in, if we robbed them, nobody's going to be sticking up for them. Nobody's going to be coming to back them. If we beat them up and kick them out and take all their drugs and money, then they're probably just going to go back up north again with their tail between their legs. They're not going to be going to the police. They're not going to be looking to the community for support and help or anything like that. No, there'll be no repercussions on us because they're out-of-towners. They don't know who we are. It's not going to be obvious that Williams robbed these guys. So it was a fantastic little learner, and the way we did it. Once we'd cased the joint for a bit, what I would do is either by myself or with a friend, I would go and knock on the door, and as they answered the door, once it opened even just a little crack, I'd boot the door as hard as I could, sending whoever was behind the door flying. I would grab them. I'd have either a hammer or a baseball bat, something like that, and I would threaten large amounts of violence unless they did what I wanted. If anybody ever acted up or anything, then we would maybe, beat them up a little. But again, these weren't innocent people. These were drug dealers. So as much as I feel bad for affecting people's lives in the fact that, these people may be scared of opening the door from now on. It wasn't like I was doing it to, to normal straight goers, or I wasn't knocking over little old ladies for their pension, that sort of thing. So in my own mind, I always kind of sugarcoat it and say that I wasn't doing a really bad thing, but obviously I was. And I haven't done it for many, many years, so it's not something I have to worry about too much now. But yeah, and then I would leave. Everybody walked away. I never put anybody in hospital. I never stabbed anybody. I never took a knife with me ever, because playing those games is a very quick way of getting someone seriously hurt to the point of dying. Now, whenever I used to commit my crimes, I would always be as careful as I could to cover my tracks, and I would always be as careful as I could to not even leave tracks, because my philosophy was always to think back. So imagine I get caught for a crime. I'm sat in a police cell. What evidence are they going to find for this crime? So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to search your property. So you have to make sure there's nothing in your property that links you to that crime, because that's just going to be an easy win for them. All right. The next thing they're going to try and do is they're going to try and place you at the scene of the crime. So you have to make sure that you're not seen to-ing and from-ing, that your phone doesn't give away your GPS signal going into the property or sat outside the property. You have to make sure that there's no text messages or phone calls that link you to that property, as in people, as soon as you've robbed someone, for example, texting your mate saying it's done, or I've got the stuff, or, sitting there texting each other, talking about doing the robbery, that sort of thing. And then also you don't want to get caught out with any of the drugs or money or anything that would link you to that crime that you've taken. So you have to be very, very careful to sort of cover those bases to make sure that the police, don't have anything to link you to that robbery. Now, going back to the robbery I saw on 24 Hours in Police Custody, like I say, there was an Asian girl and a black lady, and then two other men who came in afterwards. So the Asian girl kind of instigated it. She got hold of the victim online, started messaging him, started, flirting with him and things. And obviously one thing's led to another, and she's at his flat and she's brought another girl with her, a young, pretty black girl. And this lad probably thought that all his Christmases had come at once, He'd only just come out of prison himself in the last few weeks. Now, the ironic thing is that the victim, had committed one of these honey trap robberies before. That's what he'd ended up in prison for. So, nobody deserves to lose their life, but he wasn't exactly innocent. He wasn't an exactly innocent straight goer himself. So that's probably why these girls thought it would be, an easy target to go and get this guy. So the two girls have got him in his room. They've started to, get hot and bothered. They've GHB'd him. They basically used one of those date rape drugs to knock him out. And as he's kind of passed out, they've then gone and propped the door open. One of them's gone outside and given a signal. The two other lads turn up, and they come in and start searching the place to commit the robbery. The victim wakes up, comes round, there's a scuffle, the victim gets stabbed. And then everybody runs out. They've got drugs, they've got the watches, they all jump into a car and they leave. Now the problem is not only have they left a paper trail, it's such a paper trail. There's all of the evidence of obviously the Asian girl's messages to the victim on Instagram. There's text messages between the two girls themselves. There's phone calls from one of the girls to one of the lads who's driving around. He's waiting around the corner in a car. The lad driving has hired the car in his own name, using his own documents. Because it's a hire car, it's got a tracker on it, so it's easily traced to everywhere they've gone. And the Asian girl is linked to the other gentleman who did the stabbing. So they're all tied in together. And once the police get one of them, they get all of them. Because, again, this paper trail, they hadn't, they might have covered their faces up from the CCTV. They might have, stopped them. They weren't touching anything in the property. But they didn't think back in the slightest. that car's easily traced. Their messages are easily traced. All of this was very poorly planned out. My belief is that it's a robbery gone wrong. They didn't think it would end up in a murder charge, but once it did end up in a murder charge, they were quickly found themselves very, very vulnerable, and in no way, shape or form were they going to get away with it. I'd encourage you to watch it. It's like I say, it's a how not to rob program, essentially. So yeah, thank you very much for listening again today, guys. I just wanted to do a quick video talking about those couple of things that were in the news and on TV recently. I'm continuing to obviously try and expand everything. You may have noticed a couple of adverts on the channel. I've finally got my YouTube sorted. Because when I set my YouTube up, obviously I put it in a fake name. William Bonney isn't my real name, and I haven't been able to prove that identity because Google want you to prove your identity before they'll start paying you for people watching your videos. So for this whole time, I've been doing it for free. I haven't actually managed to earn a single penny from anything that I've done so far. But now Google have finally verified who I am. So you may notice a couple of little adverts before and after the videos. So what I'd really like you to do, if you love me, put a playlist on when you go to bed and just let all the videos run through and increase my revenue, so I can keep making spectacular videos for all of you. All right, so like, subscribe, watch the adverts, and yeah, thank you very much. I'll see you next week for another episode of the William Bonney Weekly Podcast.